Ruby, 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 Ruby. Ah, that's not many lyrics, that one. Let's start. Oh,
Found a really interesting fact in this book.
Have you?
Go on, Jeb.
Yeah. 90% of the world's data was made in the last 2 years.
I don't believe you.
Sorry.
Hello there, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I am your host, Rich Owens, and joining me today, we have loads of people, loads of friends. We have D-Boy Plays, we have Jebbaroo, we have the returning Callum. He's back underneath me in a podcasting context, and no other. No, nor should he be. We're equals. Level standing within the community because we're good people and honest people and we both love our mums. Callum, how are you? And your mother, who's definitely not the chief of police.
I'm glad that ended because I didn't really know where you were going there, Rich. If I'm honest.
No, neither did I.
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. It's lovely to be back. Ahoy, my hearties, to all the pirate fans out there for that episode.
There it is.
And that happened, and that's got majorly criticised in general by the FM community, which I thought was very much deserved. But no, I'm good, thanks, Rich. Who shall I pass it over to somebody? Dan, how are you?
I'm very well today. Thank you very much, Callum. It's been a nice weekend, nice week where saves have been finished and things have been achieved. And yeah, it's all been pretty good. Hey, Jeb, how are you today, buddy? You're
Are you allowed to speak?
You're of course you're allowed to speak.
Yes.
If anything, I insist.
Oh, okay. I thought if I speak, I was in trouble. That's what Rich told me. So right, it's fine. Yeah, I'm all right. I met a big horse today.
Did you?
I'm not gonna go into any more context on that. I met a big horse.
How big are we talking?
Like 7-foot horse.
Oh, that is a big horse.
How many
hands
hands
is
is that?
that?
'Cause that's how they measure a horse.
Yeah, apparently it's 16.3, but the horse kind of dips. That's where they measure it. They measure it like where the saddle would go. But then the horse is still like way up here.
Oh, so
Because
the
the
hands
horse.
goes to the dip.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought hands would go to the head.
No.
Do you know what? This is the second time I've had this exact conversation this weekend. The keys player for my function band rides horses, and she was talking about, okay, well, how do you measure horses? I was like, measure a horse with hands. And she was like, yeah, did you know it doesn't go? You don't go to the head; it goes to the dip on them. I was like, oh, okay. So yeah,
Why
we
would
go.
you go to the dip though? That's like the equivalent of measuring a human and going just to the shoulders.
Yeah, but you're not going to climb on the horse's head.
Well, how do you ride a horse? Incorrectly by the sound of things. You're at the biggest, so you can see the furthest.
And is it a literal hand, or have I been had on here? You know when they talk about hands,
Because it's about 3 inches, 3.5
so
inches.
is that way, not that way?
Yeah, not that way. That way.
Oh, that's worked for the audio listeners.
Yes.
When you
landscape, not portrait. Hands.
Right, okay. But then whose hands?
Landscape hands.
Landscape hands. Live in college.
Exactly.
That's why Callum gets laughed out of stables because he tries to measure horses with a vertical hand. And they're like,
Portrait hands. Yeah.
what are you doing? Portrait hands, honestly. The laughing stock of the equestrian community.
How are you, Rich?
I'm fine. Did you know that trousers you wear to ride a horse are called jodhpurs?
Yeah, we all
Jodhpurs.
What? I didn't know.
Yeah, that's
That's
your
a great
horse.
name.
That's your general horse.
I just
riding
assumed
apparel.
everyone would know that.
That's the second time I've had that conversation this weekend.
Jeb was caught stealing trousers from. He's like, they're not trousers, they're jodhpurs. And
Exactly, yeah.
it's a loophole. It's a loophole.
It's fine. It is legally allowed to steal jodhpurs.
Yeah.
No, it's not. For
Don't
legal
steal-
reasons.
don't steal
Do not
jodhpurs.
steal.
Don't steal
FMT does not endorse stealing jodhpurs.
Good. Anyway, I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
Where do we go from here? Like we have dug
I'm
a hole
good.
here, haven't we?
I feel like down. I feel like we keep digging on, dig down. We'll dig our way out. That's the solution.
Or climb our way out through the leagues. Because someone did something pretty amazing, didn't they, Callum? It's you. Cut to you. Talk about you.
Yeah.
I was just measuring myself in landscape hands. I was just trying to work out how many landscape hands.
Where were you measuring?
I actually got to the belly button and then decided to stop.
Okay.
But I got to 11 hands. Yes, a thing happened with Football Manager. Now, if you don't know by now, you probably haven't listened to an FMT podcast with me involved. I've been managing Slough for 2 game cycles, so not just FM24. And I didn't do that cool thing where you move your save over like the network game. I didn't do that. I started again this season. So last season, I think it was 17 seasons I played of that save on FM23. And the peak was the championship. We couldn't get out of the championship. We had a really good side, Declan Moore, of course. Everyone knows Declan Moore, Jeb's favourite player. But we had a really, really solid team. And I could not, for the life of me, get out of the championship. And it was incredibly disappointing. And it was part of the reason why I did Slough again this year, because I felt like I had unfinished business. And I started again, and but made it harder, because why wouldn't you? I didn't complete it last time, so why not add region air rules to the save? Because that's a great idea. That made it pretty tricky, to the point where in season, I want to say 7, when I was still not out of non-league, I was starting to debate whether I'd made a great, massive mistake. Also aligning with the fact that I was a new father and really struggled to find any time to stream and stuff like that. So it was the perfect storm, really. However, just 7 seasons later, so that for context, non-league for 7 years, 7 seasons later, I have finally, after 2 game cycles, got into the Premier League. Everyone, come on!
Did you sign Wilfred Pony?
So I'm in the Premier League, and
Stable Hernandez.
Oh no,
F Horsefield.
That's an actual.
God, that's awful.
If you got fired, they could have brought in Jurgen Clip Clop, Clip Clop, Clip Clop.
You've really ruined a special moment for me here. You know, I've finally done something. And,
was N'Golo Kanté?
oh no.
Oh.
No, maybe that's next year's save, a horse-based save. I'm here to announce FM25. All players must have a horse-based pun in their name.
They've taken out weights, but everybody's now measured in hands. It's very confusing.
Landscape or portrait? What type of hands? Got to be
landscape.
landscape. Always got to be landscape. So we've actually done it. It's quite a surreal one. And at the time when we actually did it, I felt really overwhelmed. It was bizarre. Like, I've never really felt quite that way. I mean, the end of my season in the championship, which got us up, was probably the most dramatic end to a season that I've ever had. Like on FM full stop. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. We've all had seasons where you're sort of nearly there, nearly not there. But I played the last 6 games of the season on the stream, hoping I wasn't going to have to play a playoff, because I'm not particularly good at playoffs. I've managed to keep that quiet, though. And I'm definitely not an internet meme for that at all. And so I had 6 games left. And I thought, there's a couple of games in there that should be quite straightforward. So I started off, I'm going to run through them. Why not? I started with Notts County. Notts County at home. Notts County were, I want to say, 22nd, 23rd. They were down there. So I give myself quite a nice game to return to stream to. I do try and do that. Do you all do that? Like, you try and give yourself a half decent game to return to?
Mine's usually after an international break.
Yeah.
Early on, I use the international break as like a fast forward bit, and then maybe, or it will be like just after we've done something significant, like a final or last Champions League game or something like that. That kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I usually stop when I need a big toilet.
A big toilet.
That's what it is. A big toilet.
How many hands? You know, on split hands. So
We only measured up to where he's going to saddle it. So it's
oh dear. So we started off with Notts County, as I said, and we absolutely battered them 6-1. So I was like, this is fantastic. We started the stream, 3 points behind second place Burnley, but with a game in hand. So, and our goal difference was much better than Burnley's as well. So basically I knew if we win every game in the run-in, we will win. We will get promoted, basically. We'll finish above Burnley. And then the next game we had was against Blackburn. And at half time, we were 3-0 down. So that was good. Consequently, side note, the guy who scored a hat-trick against me for Blackburn now plays for me. I bought him because of that moment. But second half, we came back and beat him 4-3. One of the best comebacks I've had in seasons and seasons on FM. And then, hilariously, next game week, played Bristol City, 24th in the league, went 3-0 up at half-time. Are you seeing where this one's going? And we lost 4-3. So in 2 consecutive game weeks, a team was 3-0 up and then lost 4-3, which I thought was ridiculous. And at that point, it was panic stations because my next game was against Derby, who only needed a point to win the league. So they were top of the division and they got the point against us. They drew 1-1. So at this point, Burnley was starting to form a little bit of a gap there. Then we played Wrexham in the penultimate game of the season. And we were, I think, 2-0 up. Then they got it back to 2-2. Then they went 3-2 up. Then it was 3-3. And then in the 96th minute, they made it 4-3. And I was like, this is not happening again. And then in the 97th minute, we equalised. So we drew 4-4. It was absolutely ridiculous. And then, for added context, Steve Gennardo, our goalkeeper, who's been brilliant for a couple of seasons, had an injury in the first game against Notts County. So we were playing Dominic Coffey, who was on loan from somebody, Bournemouth or something like that. And then in that Wrexham game, Dominic Coffey also got injured. So we're going into the final game of the season where we are 2 points behind Burnley with no goalkeeper. So we looked into the reserve team and we found Slough-born Lenny Roach. And Lenny Roach, 17 years of age, had never played a professional game before. And I thought, you know what? Why not? Why not? Let's just chuck him in at the deep end. We gave him the number 1 shirt. And so he comes in to start the game. And within 6 minutes, Plymouth went 1-0 up against us. So we were already losing that game. It wasn't a glorious moment for Lenny at all. Burnley then went 1-0 up in their game. So as it stood, they were second by a distance. Burnley then went 2 up in their game. So it's like, it's gone. It's just gone here, isn't it? So halftime came around, Burnley 2 up, us 1-0 down. I was a bit disappointed. Second half, come out. Owen Morris makes it 1-1 for us. Wonderful stuff. Good start to the second half. Irrelevant because Burnley is still winning 2-0. Then we get a penalty. So it's 1-1 in the game. We get a penalty. On stream, last game of the season, I thought it was gone. So naturally, 17-year-old Lenny Roach stepped up for the penalty and buried it in the bottom corner on his debut, his professional debut, to make it 2-1. But at this point, I was like, it doesn't matter anyway. Minutes later, we make it 3-1 through an absolute screamer. And still, at this point, Burnley 2-0 down. So it didn't matter. And then, I've got it on the video, it just, out of nowhere, Rich's Sheffield Wednesday make it 2-1. So they get a goal back against Burnley. And then 3 minutes later, they get a second goal in the 86th minute to make it 2-2, which means Slough and Burnley are joint on points, but because of our far superior goal difference, we got promoted to the Premier League. And it was magic. It was absolutely magical.
What a moment. Genuinely, what a wonderful moment. I was fortunate enough to be free and available and hanging out in your chat when that happened. And such a lovely experience watching that result come in. I think going to Y Sports News to try and keep the tension, but then everyone hearing the Steam achievement in the background
Completely ruined it. Completely ruined it.
It was fantastic. Everybody, and this is kind of the point I suppose I wanted to make about it, because I was, like I say, I was in your chat and I was watching the stream, and everybody was very, very, very happy for you. And I was dead proud of you, because not because of what you accomplished within the game, which, you know, by itself is no mean feat. You took a team from the Vanarama and you put in a very, very specific and difficult set of rules, and you still managed to get yourself into the Premier League with that, which is nothing short of incredible. But I think for me, it was watching the reaction of everybody that was in your stream when it happened, because like you alluded to earlier, said this year it's been, in terms of content creation, it's been a difficult year.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of other ways, you know, in the having a family way, very good year, great year for babies, bad year for streaming, you know, which tends to be the case. So I don't know, you know, we've talked before, we've talked, you know, kind of on and off camera about, you know, it being difficult and that being so. How do people with any kids under the age of 3 have time for hobbies, let alone streaming? It's physically impossible. But that moment felt like the culmination of another year of like dead hard work. And the fact that there were so many people in there with you experiencing it, that's just a testament to how invested in Callum people are. And that was like a really, really lovely moment, because, you know, we've all had it. If you take a big old break from streaming or you do anything, and, you know, you can lose momentum if that's what you're looking to do. If you're looking to grow a stream and looking to grow your profile as a content creator, if you take too much time away, you can lose a bit of momentum. And that's naturally a thing that's going to happen, because people are going to gravitate towards other streamers, the content creators, whatever it may be. But when Callum is streaming, people want to go and watch Callum. And the amount of people that were there and how happy everybody was for you, that to me felt, you know, it must have been very cathartic. Like, I've accomplished this thing, and loads of people are really, really happy for me. Because I say, we've all been there, we've all seen the journey. You know, I don't think you've been particularly shy about the difficulties of trying to fit in a hobby around having a new family. So that for me was just like a dead nice moment, and I was very, very proud and very, very happy for you when that happened. Which, you know, it's just a nice thing. It's nice to be able to be proud of your friends for having accomplished something really, really cool. So, you know, that was me. That was where I am with that. Well done, I suppose, is the like.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
It is weird, because, like you say, it felt bigger than just getting a team on Football Manager into the Premier League. Because the reality is, everyone's done it already. Like, at this stage of FM, literally everyone's. I think Shaughnessy did it in 7 years. Like, you know, like everyone has already done it, and like, so to be in a situation where, I mean, the community in general, this is the thing about Football Manager and streaming. Like, if people say to me, you know, should I start? 100%. Like, you should 100% start, because there's nothing better. I've had my favorite ever saves on Football Manager while I've been streaming, because with people involved, people message me about fictitious strikers, and, you know, like, have really strong opinions about my new gens, you know, like these ones that, you know, when you're playing offline, that they're your own little secret almost, aren't they, your new gens? And once the save ends, they go. That doesn't happen with streaming. When people buy into your stream, those new gens live forever. Like it's, I mean, Dan has done about 6 different jingles for strikers that don't exist. You know, and that's the incredible thing. Like, and I don't know, I also feel proud. Like, I as you say, Rich, I've been really open about how this year has been a major challenge, and it's made me debate whether I wanted to keep doing content creation as well, because, I mean, it's an awful lot of responsibility, and sometimes, you know, I quite often will feel quite guilty coming up and playing my little game when I'm a dad, and, you know, that's my role now, is to be a dad, and that far outweighs going online and playing as Slough. But I think I will be very, very sad and probably a bit emotional when this game cycle does end, because this is the end of Slough for me. I feel if I was to do another year, I mean, I just about held on to people this year with doing Slough again, and I love Slough Town. Like, they will always hold a very close part in my heart. But the reality is, I mean, I'd have to be someone exceptional to be able to hold people's, hold people's attention for a third year of the same thing. And I'm not sure I could put a harder challenge on it because I just won't get out of the Vanarama South. Like, I'll just spend an entire game cycle with Slough in the Vanarama South. So, yeah, it was really, really special because that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to beat last season's achievements and I wanted to get into the Premier League. Anything now is a bonus. Obviously, you start thinking, can we win the league? Can we get into Europe? That sort of stuff. And if we do, great. If we don't, honestly, fine as well. Like, because, at the end of the day, we've got not just with Slough, not just with the context of everything outside of it, but the save was hard. Like, the Regionair rules I put on it made it very, very challenging. And I've sacked them off now. I've decided I'm just going to have some fun. I'm in the Premier League. I've done what I wanted to do. So we're going to go to South America. And what an absolute pleasure it's been going to South America, by the way. Goodness me, I've missed South America. But you can buy players who are really good for like £1 million. Like, it's madness. Why did no one tell me about this before? I should have done Bill Slabber exclusively signing players from South America, I reckon. But yeah, no, it's been magic.
Yeah, I'd like you say, it's been a joy to watch. Like the last 2 years, it's been a joy to watch. I will say that. There's a reason that I started making songs for you because it was like I'm so invested in what you're doing, and then when you said you're doing another year, it was like, cool, I'm in. I'm absolutely back in this and it's going to happen. Like, it doesn't matter if it takes the entire game cycle, which, fine.
It's going to.
Yeah, but fine. We've got there. You've got them up to the Premier League. I mean, I'd been sitting on that, you've made it to the Premier League version of We Are the Champions for a couple of months. Can't wait to send this to you. And then I sent you the wrong one.
Yes, it was the non-league one still.
Yeah, I sent you the non-league one. I was like, I'm so sorry, I've sent you the wrong one. But yeah, watching the Slough journey over the last 2 years, and like you say, the fact that you've done it in a much harder context this year and done it quicker is amazing. Is absolutely fantastic, and it's definitely something to be wicked proud of.
We touched upon it because we're going to sort of naturally progress into how sort of you getting promoted into the Premier League, what you do, that sort of thing. But I've looked through a lot of my squad. I think the beauty of doing a Regionair save, as much as it is really, really tricky, and there's no two ways about that. God, you get attached to these players. I think it's really easy in Football Manager if you sort of every time you move up to basically ship out the majority of your 11, replace that with a better 11, and then do well in that league. I didn't have that option because I was so tied to the position, the places I could buy players from. So Hamzat Kagbo is a name who I've mentioned a few times on pod, and he was a player who I signed in my very first season in this save. And he's gone on to play 432 games for Slough and scored 238 goals. But most importantly, in my last stream, he came off the bench and scored a penalty in the Premier League. And that means he has scored in every single division for me on the way up. And it's brilliant. I put a TikTok out of it earlier in the week, and the amount of people who I've got no idea who they are messaging and going, oh, I've had this success with Cargbo, or, oh, I've had a striker who's done exactly the same when they've gone through all the leagues and they've scored for me. And it's just like, that is the game. It's we talk about creating those stories all the time. But the fact that I signed this 6'6" striker on loan from QPR in the 23-24 season, and in the 2037-38 season, he scored in the Premier League. It's just so cool. The funny thing is, he's not alone. I've also got a defensive midfielder called Kessie Denton, who now Cargbo is very much a bit part player, shouldn't really be anywhere near the team. Unfortunately, his legs went about 5 years ago. And he was never quick. But I also signed Kessie Denton in the Vanarama South. But the amazing thing about Kessie Denton is he still starts. He is my halfback in my team. So we were discussing this on the stream before, the other day. he's almost more of a success story than Hamza Kagbo is, because can you imagine a footballer starting for your club in the Vanarama South and then also starting every game in the Premier League for a season? No, that's amazing, isn't it? Players shouldn't be allowed to do that. And he's my first example. I don't know if any of you have seen this in the game yet. He's my first example who's had the late developer tag. It kicked in when he was 27. He's now 29, but he basically improved a little bit, which has done him a world of good to stay in the team. But that was awesome to see one of your players that's been with you forever go, oh, he's actually improving at 27. You know, I was like, oh, he might go all the way with me here. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, Jeb, I'm thinking now back to the very, very early days of Morecambe. I mean, when you signed a 38-year-old Marcelo, you know, was that under the impression that, hey, maybe once he hits 40, he's really going to kick on and become the fullback we all knew he could?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Firstly, nice one, Callum.
Thanks, Jeb. Thanks, Jeb.
Yeah.
Cool. Great stuff.
Look
at me. It's the Premier League. Yeah. I had a dramatic finish to my championship season. All right, I spent 65 million, but you know what? Never mind. Yeah, make it all about Callum's big success. Yeah, fine.
What I really enjoyed about this conversation was that I started off by saying something really nice, then Dee said something really nice, and I was like, well, Jeb's either going to have to also say something nice or just double down and just spit at him. So I'm glad it went that way. Yeah, I'm very, very glad it went that way. No, I think it's an interesting point there. I mean, Jeb, you've took over the team you chose to take over for personal reasons. You've been promoted from the Championship to the Premier League now. Callum, obviously, the Slough story, you know, has not culminated, but you know, you've reached that final chapter. You're a Premier League club now. Dee and I were talking before we started recording the pod. I owe everybody an apology, by the way, because I just lied outright to everybody a couple of weeks ago when we talked about about our tips for new players and realistic expectations for your saves and your clubs. I've been messing about for the last fortnight with a retro Sheffield Wednesday save, and it's an inherently bad Sheffield Wednesday team. And I got them promoted to the Premier League in one season because that's just what you do. That's just what happens, isn't it? You find you make a broken tactic with Barcelona, and then really weirdly you can replicate it with Sheffield Wednesday. So that's just how it goes.
So you just rubbing it in on Callum even more.
Yeah, just one season.
I wasn't really that harsh. I know.
It's really easy.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's so easy. Jamie O'Hara, Danny Simpson, and Adele Tarapt. That's apparently all you need in the.
Why didn't you just sign those players, Callum?
I should have.
Why didn't you just sign Adele Tarapt, Callum?
Yeah.
But it's put me in a really weird position with my save, and I think Callum and I comparatively similar experiences. I guess Callum, yours throughout the majority of your save. Jeb spent £65 million, then got into the Premier League and has continued spending. I'm assuming, Jeb.
I've got an issue before my second season in the Premier League where I have 5 wonder kid strikers who are all 4.5 5-star potential.
Bless you.
I don't know what to do. It's difficult. Which ones do I pick? Which ones are your favourite children? You know, it's really difficult.
In my experience, the quieter one, whichever one's quieter that day, I love.
My favourite one's the one that was out on loan that I didn't really know about. He played for England in the World Cup, like he made his debut in the World Cup and scored 3 goals in the World Cup. And I've never played him. Didn't even realise I had him. And he's the worst one, so he's leaving.
So there's that avenue to it, but then you've also got, I think myself and Callum, and I think Dee, you fit kind of in the middle of this, I suppose, because you've done it with Retro West Brom comparatively recently, but Retro West Brom have a better reputation because we've kind of contrasted and compared some of the players that you brought in early doors. I've been approaching players that I thought should be interested, and the amount of players that have just laughed in my face when I've had bids accepted by the clubs, but then the players have gone, no, absolutely not. Under no circumstances would I even consider playing for Sheffield Wednesday. It's really, really hard when you have that low reputation. I mean, Callum, you've spent, the better part of 17 seasons trying to get there. Would you say that's a fair way of describing the experience you've kind of had from the Vanarama up, being Slough Town, not having that reputation, especially with the rules you've put in place for your save? How difficult was it to build a cohesive squad just to get to the Championship, let alone moving forward to the Premier League?
I think it's ridiculously hard. But so it should be. Like I think the reality is, if in previous years, I have had issues with reputation where it's like, well, I have been in this division for 4 years now. I'm reasonably well established. Why am I still regarded as a League Two team when I've been in the Championship for 4 years? And like that has bothered me. But there are elements where you do need to make it a little bit harder, because the reality is Slough Town shouldn't do this. You know, like that's not something. And it's always this argument between like the realism and the fact it's a game, and how do you sort of temper that? And I think reputation is one way of doing it. It's incredibly annoying. The thing that gets me is when you find the perfect player, you find and he's even willing to join. And then a team 2 divisions below you offers for him, and he chooses them. And that, you know, even if it's like more money or something, you just go, this just isn't right. Like this, you know, surely the player's got to choose me. But because we are regarded as like lower than that team, who are 2 divisions lower than us in reputation, it really, really does make it difficult. And like there's players who I have currently got playing in the Premier League who start for me every week, who are regarded as League One and League Two players. And I know eventually as the season goes on, it does start sort of building, doesn't it? And the league start going, oh, actually they're not that bad. But I mean, for example, my goalkeeper, Steve Gennadu, is a good Sky Bet League One player, apparently. And you know, and he's had a really good start to the season. And so you yeah, I think it makes it more difficult. I think it adds more realism to it, but at times it's like, I just kind of want to sign it. Can we just forget about the reputation for like just this one player? Can he just join, please? Because I'd really quite like him. But it goes hand in hand with everything, doesn't it? With regards to wages, you are, the finances are as hard to work alongside as reputation, I think, because if you go up quickly, the club can't handle it. I was playing in a 5,500 seater stadium until I moved into the Premier League. So, and we, for the last 3 years, we've sold that out every single seat, every single game. And we had got a new ground that we were building, which we perfectly planned for the first season in the Prem, which is ridiculous. I don't know how that happened, but like, we had 5, so we weren't earning enough money. So like we weren't getting enough ticket sales through. We didn't have an awful lot of players that were going for much money. So we're just in this hole of, we haven't really got any money. So our wages were always like right down the bottom of the league, whichever league we were in. And that really, really did hamper us. I mean, I'm just looking at the Premier League now. Right, so Arsenal are top of the wage spend with 300 million per annum. We're bottom, which will shock you all, with 30 million. So we've got 10 times less than Arsenal. But Derby, who are 19th, have got 69 millions. They're over double our wage structure just to go to 19th. Yeah, very nice. So you know, it's like I say, it's a good and a bad thing. I wonder how much a manager's attributes comes into play in that scenario. When you've got a player who's supposedly a championship player or a League One player, if your manager is better, does that bring the best out of players that are maybe overperforming? Because I felt like a lot of my Slough squad have overperformed for the vast majority of this save. Like they're players who maybe shouldn't be as good as they have been. I don't know, what do you all think about that sort of thing?
I think there's been a long history, I think, when you look at certain signings or certain players across saves in past and present FMs, that always feel like they play above their attributes. It's always the way. I mean, you've mentioned like Kessie Denton, for example, like, still a pivotal player in your team. He is your halfback. I mean, in terms of his attributes, what's he actually looking like, Callum? There's my first question. Let's talk Kessie Denton. Let's use him as an example here.
So if we're looking at like the key attributes for a halfback, work rate is 10, marking's 15, which is pretty good. Teamwork is 9, strength 13, stamina 14. So you're talking a below average midfielder, I'd say probably. But then if I compared him to a lot of championship midfielders, they'd be better than him.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing.
Mhm.
But I mean, a really good example for me is I had a left back. Oh, I still do have a left back, but he's now my backup left back called Justin Briley, who is our club captain currently. He's played 311 games, and every season. So I'm sure I've heard Jeb talk about how you can never get like a good rating out of a fullback, and I think it was a pod that I wasn't on, because I would have come back and said, I'm literally the opposite. I don't know why. My fullbacks always seem to be the highest rated players in my team. And it might be the formation I play, because I play like a diamond. So the fullbacks are basically my wingers as well. But these are the average ratings of Justin Briley since, and I bought him in the Vanarama National, 7.28, 7.12, 7.22, 7.3, 7.17, 7.23, and 7.25. So that's until we got into the Premier League. They are exceptional seasons every single season. And these, so his technical ability, he can't kick a ball. He's got 12 crossing, but outside of that, every technical attribute is 9 or lower. Every single one.
Wow.
And this is a player who has been getting consistent over 7s for the last 8 seasons. Like anticipation 9, off the ball 9, teamwork 10. He's not a good footballer. He's not a good footballer, and yet for some reason he's been unbelievable for me. And I don't doubt if I start him in the Premier League, he'd probably be fine.
Has he got big matches? Does he relish big matches?
Let's have a look.
Because that might be the thing that because that's what I had Bagani at Pescara last year.
He doesn't enjoy him.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, I had Bagani at Pescara last year, and because every game was a big match, he scored like 80 goals in 60 games or something stupid. And his actual attributes, I don't think there was anything actually higher than 12, but he was still just smashing them in all the time.
I mean, it says he's a fairly consistent performer. It doesn't even say he's a consistent, just fairly consistent. You know,
He's all
right.
Yeah, he's fine. He's fine.
That doesn't make it. Is he consistent? Sometimes.
Yeah,
no, that's
a
not.
bit.
He hopes so. Yeah, he hopes so.
Consistent.
Why
He's thinking about it.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? But he's one, like, if you consistently putting in those good performances when his attributes are mostly bad, objectively bad attributes, like it shouldn't make sense. He should not have the capacity to be a consistently good player on FM. In terms of, I'm guessing at this, but are you favoured personnel of his?
I would hope he's madly in love with me. Would be my hope.
Fingers
Yes,
crossed.
Of course I am. Yeah, favoured personnel. Yeah,
maybe that's something to do with it. Maybe favoured personnel links into player performances in some capacity. You would imagine so. You would imagine so, wouldn't you? That after God knows how many years of you managing them, they're going to be more inclined to put in a little bit more effort for you.
I think that's maybe something we hope as Football Manager players. I'm sure I had this conversation on the pod with Dan and Steak a few weeks ago, that there's certain things where you really do hope it impacts for realism, but whether it actually does or not, I genuinely don't know. I suppose it'd be worth speaking to someone who goes under the hood and actually makes the game in that circumstance. But yeah, there's so much data within FM that you do wonder how much of it is actually reasonably insignificant. It's just there sort of, I mean, like the favourite personnel thing. I used to go on and sign players who liked me. When I was younger, I'm like, who's favourite person? Oh, he likes me. I'm going to sign him. He's rubbish at football, but my God, he's my best mate. So, like, it just
he'll give me a lift home if I really need one. What a guy.
Sometimes if I need an ego boost, I do it just, go on scouting and just see who likes me. It's great fun. I'm gonna do it right now. Who likes me?
It's like I beat D to a sign in the network game for this week. So.
Yeah.
So he liked me.
Yeah, literally that.
That's how it works.
And that was the only reason.
Yeah.
The only reason.
It must have been. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like when you're like getting players to overperform, it can't. Like I'm thinking back to like Med, like midway through the Med when I kind of had to like sort of just circulate around like lower league in a lot of the countries because none of the good jobs were available. Barcelona and Marseille just wouldn't sack their managers, so it was like, okay, well, I guess instead of managing Barcelona, let's go manage Ibiza and go and have a fun time there. And the team that you can sort of scrape together is not particularly anything special, but then something happens with them that just makes them play really well, whether you can just find the sweet tactic that just gets the best out of a player, or like you say, maybe there is something to do with like a manager's reputation because of something maybe you've done, like the fact that you'd been at Slough possibly for such a long time. It's like, oh, well, you know, they're going to work harder for you because you're kind of like, I don't know, relevant to the, you know, the club's history or something like that. You know, whether that's something that's ingrained in the game, it's hard to tell. But yeah, you just get like good performances out of not the best players, but just things happen. Like I remember, I think it was third tier of Turkey. I was Tuzlaspor, and the team I managed to scrape together, like genuinely didn't deserve to win anything. Yet we managed to like win the league and make it to the semi-finals of the cup, just on gumption and just on we're just going to keep going. Like I just managed to find players that would just run and just work and work and work, and they managed to do it. And then I got promoted, looked at my squad and was like, I'm going to get destroyed in the second tier. I'm running away from this. This is a problem. I'm not staying here. Which, yeah, you didn't have the freedom. Well, I suppose you did have the freedom to do so, but then you wouldn't and you couldn't do it because Slough. You love them.
You know what does emphasize it as well is what happens to players once they get released. Because I find all the time that if for example, I've got a player and I'm in the championship, so he's been released while I'm in the championship, his expectations as a player will be higher. And the reality is he is nowhere near that level. So there's loads of them. And I would say 75 to 80% of the players that I release retire. And it doesn't matter what age they are, they tend to within a season not be able to find a club and retire. And it kind of makes me a bit sad because I'd like to sort of see them, you know, kick on. But as I say, I don't know what it is, but my guess is they're going, well, I'm a championship player now, so you should be giving me this amount of money. And they're like, well, no, actually, you're a Vanarama national player, and we're never going to give you anywhere near that money. And then they just end up turning down contracts forever until they eventually retire. And I think that emphasizes that reputation issue, I suppose, because it then doesn't work as much.
I think you do see that in the game a bit anyway, because there could be a youngster, again, there may be something everyone's experienced. So like a youngster gets released from someone like Chelsea and you're in League Two, for example, and you go, right, you are clearly League Two level. You'd be perfect for our team. But because they played for Chelsea, their wage demand is ridiculous. And you're like, well, we can't afford that at League Two levels. And they're like, well, I want to go and play for this team in League One. It's like, but you're not even good enough for them. Come and play for the team you should come and play for and develop. And then, yeah, and then they, like you say, because they don't find a team, either you manage to maybe get them a bit later down the line, or they just disappear from the game altogether. And that's,
I had it with Canizares. I think it's Canizares, his son, actually, Lucas Canizares. And I tried to sign him for Sheffield United. He was playing for Derby, who were at the bottom half of League One. And I was in Sheffield United. And I was offered first team football. I was like, nah, you're not big enough reputation for me. Okay, you carry on playing in League One. Enjoy.
Yeah. Have a great time.
Yeah, it happens frequently. Like all of my Sheffield Wednesday squad that I've got promoted, the second that it was announced that we'd gone up final day of the season, 7 players came to me saying we want new contracts. We don't think that ours accurately reflects our ability. And I was like, you're all just trying to be sneaky sneaks, because I went to negotiate with the first one and they still wanted a 35% top division wage rise in their contracts, but they were all asking for exponentially more money. I was like, you're just being cheeky now, because if I give you 15 grand a week, then that's suddenly going to turn into 20 odd in about a week's time. So no, not pulling the wool over old Rich's eyes here. Sneaky Sheffield Wednesday squad. Richard Grant, how dare you? Sorry, Lee Grant, not Richard Grant. Don't know who Richard Grant is. Lee Grant.
Richard E. Grant.
Richard E. Grant.
Richard E. Grant. Yeah. So I had half of Widnell and I in goal for me, and it was an absolute mess. Absolute mess. Yeah, it was. It's really difficult, but then I won't give them new contracts, and they're now moving to, because no Premier League clubs want them, because in their mindset they're now Premier League players, but then Premier League clubs don't want them. A lot of Championship clubs are like, we can't afford the wages, and then the ones that have left, most of them have now gone to League One. because those are the clubs that are now interested in them. They're not bad players by any stretch of the imagination. You know, Kenny Lunt, he's a perfectly acceptable midfielder on his day. We've all said it. We're all thinking it. Kenny Lunt, adequate.
Always
That's
thinking
the best
about
word to describe him.
how average he
Always,
is.
yeah, always thinking about it. But then, yeah, they end up dropping down the leagues because there's nobody at that level that wants them. Or vice versa, they're just going to leave the club and they're just going to sit there on free agency for a couple of seasons because, again, their demands are so much higher. It used to be a much easier thing to do. I don't know if I'm just, I don't know if I'm sugarcoating, nostalgia, but I do seem to remember it used to be fundamentally more straightforward. Like if you approached a player towards the end of his contract and he was like, I'm currently earning £40,000. I would like £50,000 a week from you, please, and thank you to kick football for your club. But no, I'm not going to give you £50,000 a week, so I don't think you're worth it. More often than not, when their contract expired, they would come to you cap in hand. It was like, oh, please, sir, I would love £20,000 a week to kick football for you. And you go, you'll take 15 and you'll thank me for it, because that's how I talk to all of my players. I feel like that used to be a lot more straightforward, whereas now, and I don't know, especially if you're doing like a modern database save, because a lot of players, if you're managing a higher reputation club, more often than not, there's at least one Saudi Arabian club that are interested in them that are going to pay them £2 million a day. So those wage expectations stay higher. Whereas I think back in the day, I think it was a little bit easier to do that. And it wasn't, I think there was much more fluidity for the way that players kind of moved, either to different countries or, a proper old school career decline. Like somebody like Joe Cole always speaks out to me in terms of actually what he did in real life, drop down the divisions, add a little dalliance in, like, not even the MLS, just in America for a bit, came back, played for Coventry in League One, and then just hung up his boots quietly. Like that seemed to happen a lot more.
Andrew Carroll.
Now there's a man. 2 goals on his Bordeaux debut this weekend. What a man.
Taking minimum wage as well for it.
Mm-hmm. Minimum wage, flip side of that coin, you got Ivan Toney, who scored 2 tap-ins in what appeared to be Sunday League standard defending in Saudi, and he's probably earned about £1.5 million for doing so. So it's a tricky one, isn't it? I think trying to summarize this, because I think we started talking about preparing for transfer windows, and then we just got involved in something like significantly bigger and more interesting. It's difficult. I think we said you kind of sat in that weird middle ground as managing a club that, again, you've come up from the Championship to the Premier League. The expectations on West Bromwich Albion, I think you would admit yourself at the time were, we've been promoted. Well, relegation is probably going to happen within the next couple of years if we're being super duper optimistic. The club have that reputation. We were comparing, before we sat down and started chatting, some of the players that you signed when you came up from the Championship to the Premier League. And every single one of those players has refused to even enter into contract negotiations with me, because I've gone after them as well, because, in Mad's database, they are prime, signings. How easy did you find it to put together something that made you think to yourself, we've got a chance at staying up this year?
So first year in the Prem with the Baggies, it was, like you say, there were a lot of loanees that I made permanent. There were the likes of, we'd got for the charity stream, I'd got Luis Suarez, Kasper Schmeichel, Johnny Evans, Gary Cahill, and there was another guy I had on loan. I can't remember who it was. But we managed to turn Suarez, Cahill, and Kasper into permanents. And I think it's mainly because I knew it was going to be a hard challenge in the Prem. I kind of just said yes to whatever they wanted. I didn't really think too hard on I've got to, temper the finances here, because the rest of the team didn't need paying that much. I'd got, Zoltan Gira, who was on 15 grand a week. So if Kasper wants 40, he can have 40, because I've got that little bit of space to kind of give to him. But in terms of building the team, like if I actually look at the history of the squad, like that year, where would it be? Best 11, wouldn't it? So the second year that we were in, we got very lucky with some signings, but it was a lot of the players that I managed to bring in, and the ones that I'd suggest to you as well, were ones that were like young and abroad, and like hadn't, like players that because the beautiful thing with it, they're just nostalgia trips, aren't they? Those databases, and you can look and go, oh, how good is Simon Kjær like now as a football player for Denmark? So it's like, well, cool. How much is he available for? And you go and have a look at him, and Midtjylland are more than happy to give him away for 600k. So you're like, cool, all right, that'll do. He'll do a job for a season and a half. He'll be fine. And if we can stay in the Premier League, great. Then I can find someone better and ship him off for a bit of profit. So that was kind of the way I had to stabilize things, as well as just sort of looking at what I already had, the likes of Chris Brunt, James Morris, and those guys, and just build a team around what already existed was good, and then just, claw at people, and hopefully someone will let me sign them. But it is challenging, like you say, because you look at players that you think, okay, this is someone that would, if this was, if there was real, would they join me? And you think, maybe, well, they're not being played. They're in the reserves of the senior team. Maybe I can pick them up for a bit of cash. But a lot of the time, you just get that. No, why would I join you? I'm going to be part of Man United's team in 7 seasons' time. And when I am, you'll be sorry and be like, yeah, but you could come and play first team football for me now and develop. And then you could get that move to, wherever you want in the future. So it's hard. It's really, really hard when you get that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I'm going to spend 7 years in the United reserves, but don't worry, in 8 years' time, everybody will remember the name Craig Cathcart. We're all going to go. Everybody will have on the back of shirts, even people that don't support Man United. They'll all want Craig's name on the back of that shirt. It's tricky. It is really tough. I mean, Callum, I know you said at kind of the top of the pod that in the Premier League with Slough, you abandoned the Bill Slough rules are now a thing of the past. You had a bit of fun with it, which was absolutely the right thing to do. Absolutely the right thing to do. And it does make, I suppose it makes that transition, because again, you had about 35 million pounds you had when Slough went up. So that can go a long way. And I think you've brought in some lovely players. And just to round this section off, I suppose, two more points I have. Firstly, it's a question for you, Callum. First season in the Premier League, where would you like to finish?
I mean, for context, I've started the season. I'm 8 games in, and I'm 11th. So we've actually had quite a good start to the season. Well, we've played quite a lot of the big boys in those first four games, which I've been told, is this a conspiracy theory? Because loads of people have said to me, the first season you get promoted into the Premier League, they give you a horrible start to the season. And loads of people have said the same. My start to the season was Tottenham away, who, for context, had won the Premier League 3 years in a row. So they gave me literally the 3-time Premier League champions away from home on the opening day. Lovely of them. I got absolutely battered in that one. And then I played Chelsea at home, who just beat me. Then I had City away, where I somehow got my first point in the Premier League. And then I had Liverpool at home. What a hideous first 4 games to be like, welcome to the Premier League. And I got 4 points from that. So I was really, really chuffed with that start. So in answer to your question, Rich, if you'd asked me that before I'd kicked a ball in the Premier League, I would have said 17th, because I just want to stay up somehow. I've got this weird sense of, we started all right here. Could we maybe do something? So I'm going to go very confidently 16th. 16th, because I don't want to be over the top with it. But I mean, I think going on, I just quickly what you two were talking there with how to get players and stuff. The 2 things I found, I've had to give everyone release clauses. It could potentially all go wrong in January if people trigger those release clauses because they weren't willing to join otherwise. Also, throughout this save, the main way I've got players in is a little thing called, once you play 1 game for your international side, I will give you 4 times the wage, and just cross your fingers that they do not get called up to international duty, which has happened on 3 occasions and almost bankrupt the club. But it was worth it because everyone else. So anytime they're like, oh no, I want 40 grand a week. They've come into the Prem, I want 40 grand a week. I'm like, that's good. When you represent England on the national stage, I'll give you 60 grand a week. But right now I'm going to give you 15. Is that all right? And they're like, yeah, not realizing they're 32, way over the hill, absolutely useless. They're never going to get anywhere near the international side. So I found that to be not a cheat. but I'm going to call it a loophole in the
nice
contract
loophole.
system, because without that, I wouldn't have been able to keep or sign most of my squad.
Sell on fee percentage on 32-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been burnt by that once or twice. When you're working on next to nothing and then you sell a player for 100k and they take half of it, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart.
Relegation release clauses of zero when you're not going to get relegated. You're like winning the league over and over. It's like, yeah, you can go for free if we get relegated.
Of course.
But we're about to go to the Champions League, and they're like, yep, cool, we'll come now. And you're like, you're an idiot. Brilliant.
Whatever happened, Callum, you need to be checking those players' second nationalities, though, because when they all start coming to you, it's like, oh, you never guess
literally
what
happens.
My great nan was from Cape Verde, and you'll never guess who I have had a phone call from this weekend.
That's literally what happened to me. I'm trying to find, I think it was, I can't remember his name now, Yaku Traore or something, who was English. So I gave him this thing and I was like, this is brilliant. Joke's on you, Yaku. No, he was also from the Equatorial Guinea. And he 29 appearances for them he got. 29 appearances. Genuinely. He wasn't even a starter for me. He was on the bench and he was 3 times my next highest wage earner. It was a gigantic mistake because he wouldn't leave because no one wanted to pay him that money. I had him on a 3-year deal. It was a disaster. I think it was in League 2. It was awful. Equatorial Guinea almost ruined the Bill Slough save.
It happens. It happens to the absolute best of us. And I suppose just to round this section off, I think, we've obviously been talking about players that might like you a little bit more. Maybe they played a little bit better for you. Play above those attributes. My start to the Premier League season with Sheffield Wednesday, I had a really, really weird one because my opening 2 games, I played the 2 teams that also came up. So I played Sheffield United, then I played Watford, and then I had a run of Spurs, Arsenal, and then Liverpool. Which none of those games went particularly well for me. I was trying to squeeze together the essentially my squad is the island of misfit toys. It doesn't work, but it's just I needed players and I brought in some players. The lads that brought me up from the Championship weren't really getting much of a look in and they were all starting to get a little bit grumpy about their lack of game time. So then I had a nice little in-betweeny game against Scunthorpe. Scunthorpe, who are predicted to finish near the bottom of the current League One, the old school League Two. They're predicted to finish, relegation zone in there. So I was like, you know what? The boys that love me, the lads that a lot of the lads have got me as favoured personnel after the league win. You know what? Now's your time to shine, lads. Go out there, turn it around. Big win, big momentum boost. They're all big names in the dressing room, aren't they? It's the captain or the captain from last season, all the big names at the club, like Johan Foley. They're raring to go for me. Let's go out and play Scunthorpe. And they beat us 4-0 at home. So I think this whole thing is don't listen to anything we've talked about for the last half an hour because none of it's true. None of it's true. They did it to spite me. My favoured personnel, like a dagger in the back it was. And they're like, oh, don't know what happened, boss. I was like, you're all terrible. And you'll never darken this club's doorstep again.
They were too busy gazing into your eyes, Rich, because they loved you so much. They couldn't pay attention to the game.
Clearly. These things do happen. These things do happen. Before we finish off, lads, I think we should try and let's finish. Not that it hasn't been enormously positive. It's been bloody lovely so far. But there's a little blog post has come out by a lovely member of the wider FM community. Your friend and ours, her name's Jenna, goes by the Female Football Manager on Twitter. All of the links to her socials and this blog are going to be in the description of this episode, so keep a lookout for them. Jenna has been doing some absolutely incredible kind of research into the wider FM community about kind of the positive and sometimes negative links between Football Manager and mental health. It's such an interesting read because I think it goes without saying that a lot of people that you may interact with, we all have had the benefit of interacting with throughout the wider FM community. Mental health comes up. It's a talking point. It comes up quite frequently. The T in FMT stands for therapy, and I think that very much kind of like leans into this. And Jenna's recently published this blog on some of the findings that she's done, and I just wanted to kind of go through a few of the bits and pieces included in there. I think it's doubly poignant. I think because obviously FM25 is on the horizon, and I think there have been some very mixed responses from some of the members of the community about certain, announcements that have been made with the game so far. I think it's very, very easy for us all to kind of forget at the best times why we play Football Manager in the first place and why we all enjoy playing Football Manager in the first place, and about the actual positive effect that it has on our lives day to day. And I say this post from Jenna is absolutely fantastic. I mean, some of the key highlights. So she's done quite a lot of market research into this. A lot of this, some of the comments from people, some of them are anonymous, some have got names on them, but but we'll keep it anonymous for everybody. But in terms of the key findings from Jenna's research here, 82% of people that she spoke to rated the game's positive impact on their mental health as a 7 or higher on a scale of 1 to 10, which is amazing, realistically speaking. That's 82% of the people that she spoke to. Like, yeah, this game is having a positive impact on my life. 50% Football Manager helps them, cope during difficult times. 50% of the people use it as a tool for relaxation. These are two like massively important things that I think we forget about. People often forget why they are engaging with hobbies, engaging with activities. Most people do it to enjoy themselves, to relax, and I think it's one of those things that sometimes gets forgotten about a little bit in terms of the wider scale of Football Manager. I think people kind of fixate on, it's just a thing. Football Manager, it's just a thing. It's just a thing that I do. It's a thing that I enjoy, but you forget why you do it and why you enjoy it. I mean, Jeb, in terms of that, 82% of the people that Jenna has spoken to have, said that it has a, positive impact on their lives. Does that surprise you? That the number is that high, or is it about where you would put it? Is it a bit low? Where do you kind of fall into that?
I think it's about right. It might be a little bit higher than you expect, but if you go further into it, there's a lot about escapism. I think FM is a great distraction from life. Like you get that deep into a game. There's a lot of games that are like that, like surprising games like House Flipper. I remember I played House Flipper for the first time when I was working in a bar, sat in my flat in Nottingham. It was a complete pigsty. I just not bothered to clean up after myself when I got home from work and stuff like that. And then I play House Flipper and just clean virtual houses and make them all look nice and everything like that. Never made any sense, but it's like the focus of where you were with it. And I think that's quite higher than, I think there is another bit where FN can become all consuming, and obviously that's something that can happen as well, and that can, like, you could end up the classic, I'll just play one more game. Can't end on a loss. Can't end on a loss. You lose 5 in a row and then you go to bed even angrier. Homer Simpson angry eyes, like while you're lying in bed thinking about it. It's a difficult. It's getting the balance, but I think it shows just like how valuable it is, and I think previous host like Matt really touched on it, like that. FM 2011 or 2010 really helped him with depression and anxiety that he had when he lived down south, and it was the same for me. When I was down south, it was just something. Just load up FM 2015, play through, keep playing. Burnley save. It's the same. Like it's just a nice way just to chill out. I think it's quite difficult on the content creation side of things. I think Callum said this as well. I've not got an offline save. I think Rich, you picked one up with Sheffield Wednesday. We're obviously all picking one up with FM Taskmaster. But yeah, I think it's also important just to take some time and play the game. Like I've really enjoyed playing my actual save offline. Getting through some seasons rather than just sitting there and prepping it. It's like, and then you can just show off what you've done. I think Callum's done that a little bit, but then he's had to record videos about it, so it's a little bit different. But it is a great game, and it's really, really good for escapism. And I think even just reading like some of I think the final comment just kind of sums it up really well. It's the one that's highlighted on there. It's like community has been a valuable lifeline. Every time I contemplated walking away, the gaming community would give me a reason to stay. Like that can be read in two ways. Like, honestly, I hope it's read in walking away from the game, but I don't know. And like I said, the amount of friends I've made just from this game, and that started with a couple of mates I used to play it with, like as I was growing up, and it's grown into the podcast, it's grown into going to the FIFA World Cup, going meeting all these creators that we've watched for years and years. It's various like things like the playoffs. It's even just like silly like muck arounds that you do with people, even like Minecraft servers that exist when people get bored of playing FM. It's led to a lot, and the community is massive for that. And I think like this, just to publish this out, Jenna's done an amazing job. Like, just to put this together as well, it's really nice to read, and it's kind of what we're about, Football Manager Therapy. I think that's what we said. We've always been community focused. We're always quite open with what's happening in our lives, as much as we can be.
I think that that's a really, really good way of looking at it. Like I said, I think for me, the most valuable thing, and like we've talked about this before, the most valuable thing that I've got from Football Manager is the sense of community and the friends that I've made that all have, it's just an instant jumping off point with people. You know, there aren't many things that you can, in many communities you can be part of, that you just have that. Everybody who plays Football Manager at some point, it's not even like it's a base level interest. If you say to somebody, I play Football Manager, most people are going to start telling you, oh, well, you play Football Manager. Let me tell you about this save that I had on Football Manager 2013. And it went on for 47 seasons. Season 36 is going to shock you. And I'm like, I am ready. I am ready for this story. Please tell. You're worried you're going to go into too much detail. I'm worried you're not going to go into enough. Please, that's what I want. That, and it's such a wonderful thing to be able to, like, you know, have when you meet people for the first time, because meeting people for the first time is terrifying at the best of times anyway. So just immediately having that common ground is a really, really wonderful thing. And like I said, there are so many wonderful quotes from people in this article. You know, there's, like I say, a lot of them are anonymous, but you know, it's, if you just read, like, you know, the section at the end that Jenna has just ended it on is basically says, Football Manager has changed my life. And like some of the quotes in there say, because they're anonymous and because some of them are a bit heavy, I don't want to go into them too much kind of on the pod, but at the same time, the link will be in the description to this episode. Have a little read of it, because it's so easy to kind of forget, isn't it? It's so easy to kind of, you know, just look at Football Manager as just an entity, and rather than actually what Football Manager represents in terms of people's day to day. I mean, you know, Dee, is this, a lot of this resonating with you as well, as somebody who has spent a lot of time in the game and in around the community?
I mean, massively, especially since streaming, because prior to streaming, I think we spoke about it a few weeks ago, but prior to streaming, I didn't really have any mates that played it. So then when I found out that there was a whole community on Twitch of people that play, it's like, great. I can't wait to just like get to meet as many people as possible that, you know, enjoy this game I do. And I 100%, I'd agree with the second one, 50%, you know, like you say, you know, people saying Football Manager helps you through difficult times. Like in the last 2 years, I've lost both of my granddads, and Football Manager and the Football Manager community have made that bearable and made the whole thing amazing. Doing two charity streams, and just having the game and Twitch streaming it as an escape, as a way to just distract myself. Like this year when my granddad passed, it was the amount of people that just wanted to be like, forget the game, we just want you to be okay. And it's like that meant more to me than anything. And then having the game to just be able to go, let's go live and just muck around playing Football Manager, and it just helped me cope through that whole thing. Last year with my hand injury, like doing jingles for you, Cal, helped me through that, and that was because of Football Manager. It didn't have anything to do with if you were just streaming, like, I don't know, any old game, if you were just streaming Borderlands or something like that, probably would have never come across you, wouldn't have had any connection, wouldn't have cared. But the fact that you were doing Football Manager and we're part of this amazing community, those little moments in the broader spectrum of Football Manager have made the last 2 years possibly 2 of my favorite years being alive, because I've been surrounded by people like, and getting stuff, you know, getting to do this, being asked to come and be part of FMT was an amazing opportunity. That wouldn't have happened beforehand. So it's Football Manager on the whole has really affected my life. So yeah, it's been one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
So, yeah, it was like I lost my nan a year and a half ago. I put about it on Twitter. Football Manager tweeted me back and said, "Sorry for your loss." EAFC's not going to do that, is it? Like, it's the weirdest thing. Just like my favourite game was just said, "Sorry for your loss" with your nan. It's just like, it's not going to happen that way. And it's, I don't know, like it's been a game and it's life changing for a lot of people. And it's weird. Like, I was on a super secret work call the other night. We were going over quite intense project. And we finished call off by comparing Wonder Kids from previous saves that we had. Literally bringing up screen, like, the guy I was chatting to had a folder full of Wonder Kids that he had from like FM16. I was just like, and like, but even better, and like, it'll come to light who this might be. But even better, he had a screenshot of when this person was 18, and then a screenshot of when this person was 21, and how much they developed in those 3 years. I was like, this is just too far.
No, you're in too deep. You've gone too far now. You've taken it too far. Yeah. And I think maybe a slight disservice there. EAFC will tweet you, but it's just behind a massive paywall. It's 12,000 FIFA points to express condolences online. That's one of the new features in EAFC. I think, Callum. I think this kind of takes everything that we've talked about today full circle, I suppose. Because obviously at the start of the podcast, we were talking about, the sense of achievement of accomplishing what you have, like, with your Slough Safe, but also in a wider sense in terms of the people that were invested in it. Looking at some of the facts and figures and some of the details kind of in here from all the research Jenna has done, would you say that, how would you say that where you fit in to those data, whereabouts are you in terms of the benefits in terms of mental health in your life, especially sat here now towards the end of a game cycle, having accomplished something that you thought would have been very difficult, and knowing that there is still just incredible amount of investment from the people around you in what it is that you're doing?
I mean, I've been really open about the fact that I've had a tough year, and I think that's one of the nice things about streaming. I think it's difficult to really answer this question without also talking about streaming, because they do now go hand in hand for all of us, and I think Football Manager was a game I grew up on, and maybe I didn't take it as seriously when I was just playing it offline, it would just be I'd have a film on, and I'd have my laptop there, and I would just be playing FM all day long, and that was all I did. And there is an element of escapism, but it was just my favorite game. I just loved it, and I didn't really, when I was younger, I was fortunate to have like a good upbringing and stuff. I didn't really feel like I've always been quite a positive person. In the last sort of 18 months, I found myself becoming a negative person at some times. And as I say, I share what I'm happy to share online, and I also don't share other things. And it will remain that way. But there was stuff that was really, really rubbish that happened in sort of the last year or so. And this might sound a little bit strange, but coming onto the internet and playing my favorite game and having people in a chat and stuff, that community around you, I really needed that. I really needed, people are so ridiculously kind and positive in this community. And that was shown when me and Jeb went to the World Cup the other week. It just did it. We were surrounded by people who have got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and that didn't matter. They were just there. There was no sort of elitism or anything like that. They were all just lovely. They were all happy to have chats and stuff. And I think that, to me, is why it's been so important, that it brought me up when I needed something to bring me up. And I think that's why it was so important for me personally. And ultimately, the game is fantastic. I mean, like Jeb, you mentioned about, the game tweeting you about your nan there, which is lovely. And look at Kev. So when Kev had to leave the podcast, FM then DM'd me saying, "We're so sorry that Kev's left the podcast. Is there any way we can send him an FMFC shirt? Do you have his address?" Or thing? I mean, it's madness, isn't it? And that's why I will always be as positive as I can about the game, because what you've also got to remember is these are people who are trying their darndest to make this game the best we can possibly make it every year. And like in FM23, when it was really quite negative online, because negative people are always louder than positive people, I always found that quite difficult. And I always tried to defend FM's corner, because what you're not aware of is they do see it. Like, they do see the social media posts of you being unkind about their games so regularly. And, and sometimes, look, I'm not saying don't criticize it, because if something's there to be criticized, it's fair enough. It's doing it in the correct manner, I suppose, though, isn't it? And maybe not, flogging that dead horse for all it's worth. We come back to horses. It's a full circle. But yeah, I think be kind. If Steak was here, that's what he would say. Be kind to one another, because ultimately it costs nothing to be kind. And I tell you what, this game is just magic. And how this game works, the community around it. If you're not part of it, become part of it, because it's worth being there, because we're a lovely bunch.
Paul Furlong.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Anyway,
I think it's great. It's a great game, isn't it? It's a great game. It's a great bunch of people. I love Football Manager. Football Manager has helped me through arguably some of the most difficult times I've experienced in the last 3 years. I was on a Discord call with Jeb when I got the phone call telling me that my dad had died, which was incredibly awkward for the other 3 people who are watching me on mute, as I just kind of got a bit of bad news. That was quite weird, And
it was even more
streamed.
awkward when you came back to the call.
I know, yeah. Sorry, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Business be businessing.
Yeah.
That was, I then with it some of the first people that then got in touch with me after I found that out were Matt and Tony, who at that point I still hadn't met Tony. I wasn't, at that point, that was when I was the third man on the pod who wasn't on the pod. I'd never met Tony, but he was like, do you need me to come to your dad's funeral? Because I will come to your dad's funeral if you need me there to support you in any way, shape, or form. Matt, Jeb, the same. Like, and it was wonderful. I streamed through like a lot of just the being sad because I needed something to do. And Football Manager was there. It was last year. I had a particularly bad time with my mental health for a couple of weeks, to the point where I was struggling to speak to people or leave the house. And the way that I started to try and start feeling better was to turn on my PC and stream, because I was like, right, I'm going to try talking to somebody today. This might last 5 minutes. I don't know, but at least I'm going to try. But it was there, and I was like, right, what do I need? I need something that everybody who I'm going to be interacting with today understands and gets. And there was Football Manager. There's a game. If I turn on the internet and I start talking about this game and playing this game in front of people, the people that are going to talk to me are probably going to want to talk to me about Football Manager. And that's probably the best thing I could talk about right now, because I don't have to start, getting particularly introspective about why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. It's escapism. I can use this as a tool to help me start to feel better. And it was massively important in that part of my life, especially. Say, losing my dad, massively important, because again, it was there. All right, I can play this game. We can all look at Billy Gilmore doing an absolute madness for Wednesday in the Championship on loan. Like, what a great time we'll have, because I don't have to think about all the other stuff for the time being, and I can get used to communicating with people and talking to people again. So Football Manager is a wonderful game. And it's made by wonderful people, and it's brought me together. It's made me part of a wonderful community with wonderful friends. And I like it. So thank you, SI, in a roundabout kind of way. Thank you, Football Manager community, for being just good mates. Appreciate it. I like the 3 of you a lot. I also like Stakey a lot, even though he's not here. Like you a lot, Stakey. I'm going to use my normal voice again now. There we go. Football Manager's good. Here's an exciting look behind the curtain. There was a little message in the Discord just before we started talking about this. It said, should we start to wrap it up, because we've been talking for ages. I'm really, really glad we had this conversation. Really glad we had this conversation. I think it's an important one to have. If you're listening to this and you want to have conversations like this with people, have conversations like this with people. Like, hop on our Discord, find a friend, find somebody that you know that likes playing Football Manager, and just start talking to them, because people care. Like Callum said, it's a lovely bunch of people around here, and they're going to want to listen to your stories. And people, in my experience, involved in Football Manager in any way, shape, or form, want the best for the other people around them. So have those conversations, reach out to a friend, have a little chat. It's a really, really nice thing to be able to do. Any more horse footballers, Jeb?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure.
Samir Handanovic.
See, he went a bit quiet. Is that portrait or landscape hands?
Because he's a goalkeeper, portrait hands.
Okay, some hands.
For Parry.
He owns them. Hands to Parry. Lovely. Thank you.
Thoroughbred Zaha.
Can we just end the podcast, please?
Yeah, it's for the best, isn't it? It's for the best. Before we end the podcast, Callum, Slough in the Premier League, people might have listened to your stories today and think, gosh, that sounds like the kind of thing I would like to watch. Where can they do so?
They can find me on YCallum on Twitch and YouTube. If you wanted to see that majorly spoiled now end of season, there's a video on my YouTube if you want to watch it back. It is good, I promise. And I stream on, at the moment, this week I'll be streaming Monday and Wednesday at 9 o'clock. But due to clashes with the network game, I'm changing it next week to Tuesday and Thursday, because I don't want to be on at the same time as the lovely lads, because I want to watch them as well. But that's where you can find me.
Ah, thanks, mate. That's very, very kind of you.
No
We're
problem.
moving network game to Tuesdays, yeah?
Yeah. That was the plan. Jeb, just before have we done Gary Naismith, or is that?
Can't believe Callum has left for the audio listeners.
For the audio listeners, Callum's gone.
I've never seen him so cross.
He's furious. We said to him at the start of the pod, like, if you get angry, just stamp once for yes, twice for no, and that's the okay. Jeb, if people would like to watch you managing Sheffield United and also Liverpool in the FMT network save, where can they find you doing a bit of that?
Twitch.tv/Mr. Ed.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Inside industry secret here. When we want it to make it look like Jeb is talking, we just rub peanut butter on his gums. That's how we do it. That's exactly how we do it, because that's what they did to the horses in the films. Dee, people might like to watch you streaming on the internet. Where can they find you doing that?
They can find me at D-Boy Plays, which is DEEBOI Plays.
Yes, they can, and I would encourage them to do it. Twitch.tv/Rich Owens FM. There you go. That's me. And also twitch.tv/the_steak_bake. Is it underscores? Or is that his Twitter with the underscores?
No, it's the Twitch.
Yeah, Twitch is underscores.
Twitch is underscores. There you
Twitter's
go.
not underscores.
Twitter's not underscores. But yes, I know, because when I updated the information on the podcast on Twitter, I put underscores in. That wasn't steak bake. So there you go. I should have known this. I should have known. Amateur hour. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm really, really, really am. I've got a lot to apologize for, but not this episode of the podcast, because I've had a really, really nice time talking to my friends and recording it. I hope you, the audience, have had a lovely time listening, watching, however you are interacting with this podcast. We appreciate you enormously. Thank you, Callum, Jeb, Dee, me.
Hey.
Hey. Good. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Football Manager Therapy, and we will see you on the next one. Take care. I love you lots. Bye-bye.